what happens very often at these meetings is everybody else talks, then the president don't get a chance to say nothing. But I have something to say tonight. I had hoped that there were some other issues we might interchange ideas about. The issue of what's happening with black men. What is all that all about? The issue about the Democratic Party and its refusal to invest in black people the way it ought to. And let me just say this. Black people are the base of the Democratic Party. Black people are the base of the Democratic Party. And so how is it you walk away from the base of the Democratic Party? Now, I could talk more about that because, one of the things that's important is a whole lot of white folks do not vote in this country either. The reality is what happened with Trump and the MAGA movement is he took those low-intensity voters who were on the sidelines. This is not the same Republican Party that we have known. He went, touched them, and took their grievances and took over that party. That's why he never, ever worried about his approval ratings, because he was doubling down on his base. What we do is, and it was okay to reach out to Liz Cheney and those folks and so forth to try to get that little sliver, but I wrote a piece called Kamala to the Hood, because what I was trying to say was, you need to get into those bombed out. We have sections of America that look like bombed out war zones where nobody has gone to touch those brothers and sisters at all. And we're not going to succeed until we mobilize and organize them by various means and tools. I'd hope we'd be able to go to the audience and ask James early, what does this mean in terms of Cuba and this insane, irrational boycott that has been suffocating Cuba for all these many years, or what's happening in Venezuela and various other places. But we didn't get a chance to talk about that. I really also wanted to talk about how this orange man was trashing trans people. Over and over again, trashing trans people as a way of transferring wealth to the wealthiest people in this country. That's what he was doing. Over and over again, and we have to have a conversation in our community. What do we feel about that? Because I suspect that some people say, well, I don't know about that, how they behave themselves, and that's lifestyle, and some people maybe haven't even got over the issue of support for LGBTQI rights as well. We got to have those conversations inside of our house. And I've said over and over again that with Black Lives Matter, to me, the most powerful thing that happened was it finally said, yes, we're bringing blackness back, but we're bringing blackness back for everybody. No more people in the closet. All that genius that's been pent up in our society all those years with us, don't ask and don't tell. Like we were ostracizing James Baldwin, Audre Lorde. Brother Sekou, once said, I'd rather have a gay Bayard Rustin than a straight Clarence Thomas anytime. Anytime. So we have to have those conversations. So I just want to quickly just talk about some actions. Some actions. And, we got people who are part of the Big Eight now. We got the Big Eight. So the Big Eight. And so I'm communicating to the Big Eight. But we used to have something called the Black Leadership Forum. The Black Leadership Forum was a configuration of all of the legacy organizations and other organizations that came together periodically. We do not have that anymore. And I say that because one of the things we have to do is we have to be better organized. I'm sorry that Mark Moriel is gone, but I approached him 3 months before Melanie, and I said to him, Mark Moriel, you and Reverend Sharpton were in fact had a couple of those meetings, you may recall, at the Hilton Hotel, where you brought together about 100 organizations. Walter Fauntleroy had something called the Black Leadership Roundtable, where hundreds of organizations came together. We cannot be effectively organized in this country if our leadership across the board, because Mark Moriel said, well, what about the young folks? I said, well, I'm an old head, but I have cultivated some relationships with some young people, because they have to be at the table also. And so we need a formation. I think 100 organizations. And the important thing is I don't have to be at the table. I have to see myself in the table. But what do I mean? I need to see my tendency. I need to see my political orientation at the table. Because everybody can't be at the table. And one of the things I'm calling for is a national emergency summit of black folks. We should have had one before this election. If we're in trouble, we should have a national summit. But where do you want to have it, Ron Dance? I want it in Selma, Alabama. That's where I want it to be. And I want it to be in Selma, Alabama because, among other things, there are some people who have never been there. People say, Ron Daniels, how do you sustain yourself? I sustain myself in part because I have a communion with my ancestors. And when I go across that bridge, the blood of the bridge, lets me know what my ancestors went through. And here's the other thing about Selma. Think about this. For all that Selma has meant to black people, we go every year. Rose and Hank Sanders and their family, and we celebrate, and we're there. Then we leave. Look at Selma. It is a dilapidated. It is terrible in terms of its economic development. People are underemployed. Do you think some of those brothers and sisters give a hoot about voting? Selma ought to be a model city. It ought to be a model city for what its goal and what it meant to the civil rights movement for all of us. And so I want the summit to be in Selma, Alabama. Now, everybody may not be able to come, everybody may not be but everybody can tune in. And bring some young people. That's how you overcome the Afrophobia. Bring some young people to go across that bridge and let them know what happened on that bridge. And there are other spots around the country where we can do similar kinds of things along those lines. So an emergency summit in Selma. The other thing is we act like we don't remember, every time about something new, we need to talk about some old stuff. We need to be able to use, in this period, it's not been a time when the Supreme Court, the presidency, and both branches of government by ultra-right-wing white nationalist forces. That ain't no easy playground. We can talk about resilience. We can talk about how dedicated we are and whatever, but we need more than dedication. We need a plan. And Martin Luther King talked about it. He said, we need to be able to redistribute the pain. George Fraser, aren't we sitting on damn near $2 trillion of economic power? Then we need to have our economic power must be a weapon in the black freedom struggle. We ought to keep Christ in Christmas. I'm not trying to talk about, all that money we spent for Christmas. What would happen if we withdrew our dollars during the Xmas season? Because it ain't really, it's Xmas. That ain't what's going on now. Is a perverted, commercialized distortion of what Christmas is. If we took that power, and systematically, by the way, some of those oligarchs that are cozying up to Trump now, when we withdraw our economic power, they will change their tune. Indiana came out with a bill saying they were against trans people. Y'all may not recall that. They came out with a piece of legislation and said, we ain't them trans people, all that stuff came down, they were talking about it. The NCAA, which generates millions of dollars, said, we're not coming to Indiana. And you would have thought they were Michael Jackson, the way they moonwhacked back on that thing. They modified and amended in a minute. So what I'm saying is we really do have to, and it's an art and science. We can't boycott everything at the same time. But we have to, in fact, point at specific offending institutions and bring them to their knees. Send a signal that we're not playing. Because I heard Comrade Moe last night say we have to be bold. And I do believe we have to be bold. We have to deal with this issue of misogyny and sexism and all those kind of issues. We need to talk about it because we ought to be beyond that. It's about partnership, not patriarchy. But there's some people who still hold those feelings. We're going to have that conversation. Next year is the 25th, whatever anniversary of the Million Man March, right? Well, I don't want to have another Million Man March. I want to have a 2 million woman and man march. 2 million. Sisters and brothers working together, arm in arm. Because after the Million Man March, a sister out of Philadelphia called for a woman, and she organized another 1 million people. And I'm serious about that. I'm not playing. I'm saying we need to organize a march, but it cannot be a march just for a march's sake. It means it's about political education and organizing. And when we leave, we ought to have some targets. We ought to announce to the world that we're coming for you. We're coming for you. Because we need to be in a posture of being ungovernable if necessary. Because the time is up. We're talking about COINTELPRO on steroids. We're beyond this time where, well, we're going to have a demonstration, and we call the police department and say, we're coming at such and such an hour, and, we'll be getting out at such a time. And, we have those orchestrated demonstrations. We need to fill up the jail, and you better be prepared that you may spend some serious time, if we are serious, using nonviolent resistance. And we need to use nonviolent resistance. But there ain't going to be no more of those fake demonstrations. They had their purpose. We were looking for the photo op and so forth, but there ain't going to be no more photo ops when they put Matt Gaetz as Attorney General of these United States of America. And by the way, we also need to deal with nuance and subtleties. Politics is not simple. It matters who are in these positions. I often say in my own little humble way, because I don't know, I'm not a grand theoretician, the difference between the Democrats and the Republicans is not fundamental. It is not a revolutionary change. It is incremental, but it is not inconsequential. Somebody came on my radio show the other day, and well, I don't like the Democrats, man. This Medicare Advantage. That's what they're for. I said, well, yeah, I'm for Medicare for all. I'm for a single-payer system. But because we have the current system, 50 million people who do not have health insurance now have health insurance. We cannot be mechanical about our analysis. To those 50 million people, they have health insurance. You take the 50 million and you build on it until we get a Medicare for all or whatever transformative system we want. Dr. Maulana Karenga said we must be realistic, but as for reality, we have come to change it. That's very, very profound in terms of saying there's a system here, we're utilizing it, but we ain't in love with it. We know we have to change it. Young people, artists. There's some we've met here locally and so forth, all across the country. There are young artists who want to use their voice, and their voice is much clearer than mine. I don't know how to rap. I don't know how to rhyme. I'm from the civil rights generation. I'm from the rhythm and blues generation. I kind of understand the medium of it. But we need to call Chuck D off the battle. I mean, we need to come out of retirement. We need a summit of rap activists. By rap activists, I mean those young sisters and brothers who didn't sell out, who didn't do the gangster rap, who didn't do the massage and all that. We need to have a summit because their messaging is far more important. They know how to communicate in a way that perhaps we don't. George Fraser, we might have a different take on the family question, but what I do believe is that we have an extended family. We have different versions of family. And there should be no motherless children and no fatherless children in the black community. And we need to deal with the issues of violence and all that. I can recall the National Council of Negro Women going all across this country. I told you about it. Y'all remember those black family unions they had? We need to do them again. So maybe it's a partnership and a collaboration between Fraser Nation and your concern about the black family and National Council of Negro Women pulling these family summits, another summit. Then we have to protect it because we got young brothers and sisters. The nihilism in our community is so painful that we are afraid to gather. But we cannot be afraid to gather. We have to find a way to also protect those gatherings. But we need to get them on. There's something interesting about the therapeutic nature of movement, by the way. When we did the Million Man March, it was very interesting because for a period of time, for 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 days, on that day, the murder rate, the crime rate did what? It dropped. Which suggests that there's something therapeutic about movement. So we need to move in those directions. We need to talk about reparations. We need to push Biden to enact H.R. 40 now in the lame duck section. But Ron, what the hell are you going to do that for? The orange man just going to rescind it. But that's what I want him to do. I don't want him to do that. We know he will do that. But Biden needs to have an Emancipation Proclamation moment. He needs to enact H.R. 40 now in the lame duck session. We need to get that done because the orange man will rescind it. But what will they tell? What will they say to all the people out there who we have worked for and reparations is now popular? It will let them know on whose side he's on. For some of those people who are having little trepidations about it, it'll be clear. So let's push Biden to get it in by executive order. And finally, we need to be in a situation where we're not only talking about financial literacy. We need to have financial literacy. We know how this system functions and how it works. We need to cultivate a culture of civic engagement and political literacy. And by that I mean not lecturing people, not just talking politics. I mean the way you do this, you got to make it fun. You got to make it interesting. You can't just, and by the way, what is this whole thing is you only get interested in the electoral system just before the election. That does not make sense. We need to be constantly in motion, constantly organizing. And when we have this summit, we have to talk about these various methodologies of getting these things done. We need to talk about political literacy in our community. So, sisters and brothers, I came prepared to, again, talk about some specifics coming out of this conversation. Because like George Fraser said, if what he's saying is true, then I got some years left, right? Because, and I come out of a faith tradition. I'm aching and hurting and carrying on, but in a way, I ain't no ways tired. Because we come this far by faith. You understand? And I'm 82 years old now. I'm 82 years old now.
Amen. Dr. Daniel.
And I want to share the torch. I want to share the torch and pass the torch. So we're going, George, we're going to hook up.
Just want to say
we're going to hook up. We're going to hook up. We're going to hook up, and we're going to move this thing forward. But I got to close because we got out of this church by a certain point. Got to get out of this church now.
It'll take less than 15 seconds.
I want to close on this testimony, Mr. President. I want to give a prayer that was done by Invocation St. Julian. And I wish Mark Moriel was here because he knows him. And then we're going to rise and we're going to sing the Black National Anthem again. And then we're going to do Harambe when we leave here. That's my plan. So don't interrupt my plan, brother. I got a plan. You're just speaking up on my plan, Brother President. May we always remember those who came before us, right? Don't have Afro amnesia. May we be inspired by their vision and their valor. May their lives continue to remind us that there's that servant leaders. Service is more important than success. Success is service. That principle, as you look at these people who are in there now, they have no principles. They are moral midgets. They are moral monstrosities. They have no character. We are the Miyuki people. Going all the way back to ancient, what do we believe? In righteousness and justice. It's not about power. It's not about who has the greatest weapons. When we have been successful, it's because we are organizing and moving around the principles of righteousness and justice. And yes, it gets a little complicated sometimes because we not only do it for ourselves, we fight for all humankind. And every now and then, the folks we fight for, maybe they may forget. It's irrelevant whether they forget. We are doing it because it's the right thing to do in terms of who we are as black people. That's what blackness means. At its essence, it's an ethic. It's an ethic. And we got to drill that deeply into our people. May whatever we do be shaped and molded by honesty, competence, and commitment. May our children and our children's children carry forth the pride and nobility of our history and our tradition. To the Creator of us all, let us dedicate our lives to make this world better and to make this world more beautiful. Would you now please rise for the singing of the Black National Anthem one more time? Now, since I can't sing, will somebody come please and lead it? Because I'll mess it up. Who can lead it off? Can somebody come up and lead it off? Who can somebody come and lead it off for us? All right, Sister Malaya, thank you so much for being here. Yes. Come on with it.
Hi, I expect everybody to sing with me too now. It's on your program, all right? Ready? Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmony of liberty. Let our rejoicings rise high as the listening skies. Let us march on till victory is won.
So on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, we say what? Harambe! 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 Harambe!